Hi, so welcome to Next Normal with a new intro, and I'm very to have Jamin here today. Yeah, and I think now we can rock and roll. Please maybe make a quick intro. I shared some information about you already in the show notes, but maybe give a quick introduction.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Glad to be. Hope we can have a great conversation, and there's lots of good questions we can engage with. My name is Jamin Arvig. I'm based in the U.S. and I've been in e-commerce for 20 years, building brands that others own and brands that our companies own. So we've got a ecosystem of companies that all provide capabilities to brands that are trying to grow on marketplaces or on e-commerce in general. So we've done this 20 years, and then also we're helping in different capacities now as the world has changed. So I'm on the board of advisors for a company called Thrasio, which buys and builds brands. It's a phenomenal story. If you're not familiar with it, I encourage you to check it out. They do a great job of buying small Amazon or typically Amazon sellers on the web, and trying to roll them up and provide more liquidity to those sellers. So they've grown from to 500 million very quickly. They got their valuation over a few billion in a couple of short years, and they're just getting started. So that's a great story too. So, but in any case, we're always working on how do we create value, how do we create brands and build those brands for people.
Great. So let's jump right in, because you use quite some slang when we look at the for example, the podcast that I hosted. So P1, P3, different levels, how to handle or how to connect to the marketplace. But in the end, it's also a very customer-centric view. What do I get as a customer, as a service? And that's basically the point when we look at tax and ops, because those are the ones that I, as a customer, experience. This will really make my customer experience enjoyable or miserable when I try to return something, or I don't get a refund, or I just don't get the product that I actually wanted. So explain a little bit about that on those stages, and maybe the one where tax and ops are the most differentiator.
Sure. I'll try. Feel free to have follow-up questions. And just a little bit more context too. So again, we provide capabilities for companies that are trying to grow their brands. So we've got a unit that does marketing and media spend. We provide the account management fees for these businesses. We've got a business unit that provides tech and operations. So we actually have warehousing and fulfillment. And on the tech, we do integrations and different services to help. So generally, we're providing all those capabilities that people need. One of the big capabilities is strategy and strategic oversight on an ongoing basis. And so I think this is what you're getting at. So I just want to give that context. When a company is looking at a strategy that will work for them, they need to first understand the ops. And within Amazon and most of the marketplaces, there are typically two options at the highest level, and one is called 1P, and one is called 3P. So 1P is known as on Amazon is worked through a platform called Vendor Central, and so that is when a brand is selling directly to Amazon. Amazon owns the inventory. Amazon is the retailer, and Amazon then sells the product to the end user. So that's 1P, again, using Vendor Central, and 1P stands for first party. So Amazon is the first party seller. The alternative with Amazon is to sell as a 3P seller, a third party marketplace seller, that is. So in that case, if you own a brand, you're selling your brand through the marketplace, and so a customer that buys through Amazon would be buying from you, the retailer, through Amazon, the marketplace. So that's 3P. So, and that is sold through Seller Central. So there are lots of pros and cons to those. And then there's also the fulfillment methods that sometimes people get confused with these channel methods as well. So you can go into that as you like.
And looking at different products, and you had this amazing product on water, and we talked a little bit about that before, water filtration and handling. And I mean, this is an interesting, you said DIY product. If looking in other countries, it's a product which needs to be installed. People want to have an installation base. You need qualified personnel, so it's a service. And then there are some countries where people wouldn't want to let you into your home, or let foreign or unknown people into their home. So it's an interesting topic to say, okay, it has to be very specific to a part, and then also decide what kind of services, what kind of operations do I need to apply there.
Yeah, I like how you're honing in on the word differentiator, because people tend to think, okay, are you good at Amazon or not good at Amazon? And let's use that Amazon playbook. And it's true, there are lots and lots of similarities in terms of strategies and execution methods for channels like Amazon. But there's so much differentiation that needs to happen. So in the case you just mentioned, you need to think through, a way to deliver this product to the end user, a way to deliver the service, the entire experience to the end user. And in the case you mentioned, it's a product that's a DIY product. So that product needs to be sold through channels that can support that. You mentioned some channels, some geographies like Russia don't enable that service technician to come in as well, or in the same way. In China and India, a lot of times you've got people that do come in, and it's expected that they come in for cheap. And so there's even less DIY. In the US, there's a lot of DIY people, and there's YouTube. So people that aren't skilled like me at DIY can watch a YouTube and learn how to do something quickly. When selling through marketplaces, you're typically selling, a commodity to an extent, like it or not, and you try to package differentiators around it. In the case of parts and replacement parts, you might be selling through eBay or through Amazon these parts, and you're targeting a DIY buyer in that case. Now, if you're selling through a website, you might have a different experience. You might have package installation differently. With Amazon, it's still very early. They're trying to sell installation services, but it's very early. So, but again, I think this is all under the topic of how do you create a differentiated strategy to be effective in these channels. And to do that, we definitely always start with thinking about what are the current differentiators, what are the current capabilities that make a company unique and very, very strong. And then we figure out, okay, how can those work within a marketplace strategy and an Amazon strategy, and how do we make those really help them be a key to win? So, for example, on the operations side, if someone is a bigger company, they've got warehousing all over the place. Maybe they've got delivery trucks all over the place. They might have some advantages there. A lot of the competition doesn't have that. So there are things they can fit, or if they've got a way to package a product, if a product collapses and ships differently or in a unique way, that's great. That's something that can be used. And or if it's a product that maybe is less unique, but at least it's got a very low cost supply chain, or a brand or IP on it. So whatever the differentiators are, you want to figure those out and then work the best you can with them to make them stand above the competition.
And maybe on that part also to say, know your customer and know what is the expectation. So the one part is saying the marketplace. Now I'm looking at big physical retail malls where maybe in the one end you had a nice fashion store, and the next side you had a tailor, because when you buy sometimes some things you might want to tailor it off. So to consider quick services or collaboration sites on that. And also the part to say, if I buy something and maybe I'm not there, we touched that topic before, looking in China, and I put also in the show notes some hints that what JD.com is doing on building up their complete infrastructure on last mile. So building up these packet boxes. And I know Amazon put some out in the US, but actually not a lot. And the German Post also did a lot of these boxes, and they were not that well received, or at least not that good, because up to now we can still, I mean, we're all at home, or most of them at home, so you don't miss any packages anymore, and actually people just put them in front of their door. So it's a little bit of change on the delivery side. But a few shows before, we covered drone delivery and really looking into delivery. And last mile is also a different, I mean, last mile in combination with services could be a very strong differentiator.
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with what you're saying, that you need to understand your customer and the customer's expectations. Point about China. In China, a customer might order something, and within hours, maybe 1 or 2 hours sometimes, the product is delivered. But not only that, it's installed within that time, and it's very low price. So this is now the bar that's been raised in certain areas, and so the customer then expects it. With Prime in the US, people have been trained that 2 days is normal. Pre-COVID, COVID kind of reset those expectations for a time. But then, Amazon's of course trying to get to next day, and then same day. And then these differentiators that Amazon's got as a platform will prevent others from competing, because who else can do that quick shipment? But even with the platform of Amazon or Walmart or others, there are ways to stand out and meet and exceed customers' expectations. So for Amazon, if you're an Amazon customer, you're probably typically you're buying things that have a Prime badge. We like those because shipping is free, it's included. It is fast. Typically, it's a day or two, whatever it is. But it's
no problems on refunds.
You're right. So there's the SLAs that work very, very well for the customers. We know what we're getting with Prime. However, with certain products, if they're big and heavy, if it's a long tail type product for your business, if it's a new product, if Amazon's warehousing will not accept as many of your product as you want them to, if there are delays with products, if you sell out quickly for one particular reason or another, you're not able to fulfill out of Amazon's warehouses. These are lots of reasons why you might not be able to use Amazon's warehouses. And, sellers are so set oftentimes on we need to use Amazon's warehouses. And it's true, they're very good, but there's lots of times when they're not going to work. So what do you do then? Well, you need to comply the best you can with customer expectations. And so, one of the things that can be done, and we do a lot of this, is to help people with a Prime badge if they're shipping from a warehouse that is not Amazon's warehouse. So a few years ago, Amazon stopped this, but our warehousing systems already had Seller Prime, it's called, certifications, and also FBA on-site certifications. So we're actually a node of the FBA networks. And so if you need to have this certificate, this Prime status, it's very, very helpful. And your competition might not have it, or your competition may have it, and then you really need it. So you want to have a strategy, an operational strategy, where you can meet the customer's expectations or hopefully exceed them.
And you touched one point. You said very casually, like Walmart. So I would like, maybe we didn't discuss that topic before, but I think that's a very interesting one to see, like one of the biggest physical retailers being considered as a marketplace. I mean, having been a marketplace always, but in physical, and like really taking up that part. And it's not only Walmart. There are others also in that footsteps, and they have another unique setting, because you can pick up things. You have still the grocery side. You still have certain touch points within your life, which are not only a package in front of your door, but could be much, much more. How do you see the development there, also with all the capabilities behind it? So, they have fulfillment, they have certain ops, and they have tech.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to me that Walmart has not been more successful over the last 10 or 20 years on e-commerce. And I think it was said well that you cannot give Jeff Bezos a 10 or 20-year head start. That's not a good strategy. And so that's what happened. And Walmart had this amazing infrastructure. It was fantastic and is still fantastic for warehousing all these products close to customers, and customers can pick them up or they can deliver, but they've got this amazing infrastructure set up. They've got inventory all over the place. They're close to the customers. So they have a lot of amazing assets that they still can use, but they were so far behind. And now they're, over the last several years, they made a serious effort. They bought Jet.com. They've been spending billions. They bought some other companies. They're trying to offer, a prime type offering that starts getting that flywheel for them, so they get more customers and more products. But they have really struggled. And you talk to a lot of the big sellers, and they have no interest in selling on Walmart. We sell quite a bit on Walmart, but a lot of people don't want to. There's not as many customers. It's a difficult system to sell in. They've got their advertising platform is not nearly as robust. Their technology is not nearly as strong. Their operational network is not nearly what FBA is. And they're aware of trying to sell these things. They're trying to knock down the constraints, but it's just the reality. And so, you can sell through Walmart in similar ways to Amazon, 1P or 3P, for example, through your warehouse, through their warehouse. And they're getting much better. But it's great to see them getting better. Hopefully they can accelerate that, and there can be more competition between them and Amazon to push each other.
Maybe to pivot a little bit, when we talk about grocery, and I mean, in the sense, Walmart is by heart a grocer and not a standard like retailer or marketplace. But on the grocery side, we had a very interesting development in Germany, which was different than the US during I think all the countries when we had a global economy in the past. Now we have very nation or continent-wide differences due to COVID and how people reacted to COVID due to lockdowns. And in Germany, everything is locked down. The only ones open were the grocers. And because the restaurants were locked down and delivery service was basically not very well existing. Now it picked up in Germany, but in the beginning there was only one delivery company, basically. People were streaming into the supermarket. So all the big grocery chains in Germany had amazing results. They invested heavily in technology. They invested heavily in getting the customer experience in the stores done, self-scanning, self-checkout, all kinds of things, also delivery options. But in the end, people still got to stores, and by going to the stores, that's kind of the only thing that helped you getting out of the house. And that's an interesting part that in the US, actually, I thought that Whole Foods and a lot of those grocers would have amazing years. But actually for the US, it was not that grocery was such a big winner of COVID as it was in Germany.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think in the US, we saw a huge disruption in grocery, but it was largely through a shift to e-commerce. And companies like Instacart helped with that. And Instacart, exploded in a great way, their own growth, and they enabled people to move to e-commerce for grocery. And grocery is one of those areas that had lagged a lot in e-commerce. The adoption rate in e-commerce by category, of course, it started with books with Amazon, then electronics, and then consumer goods in that order. And then it's continuing to expand. It's getting towards B2B, which we're super excited about. We work in that area, so it's expanding by product. But in the last year, grocery went to e-commerce and went to Amazon in a huge way. And I think there's a little settling, a little softening in that growth as people will be coming out of their homes more and shopping more. But it's such a great experience, buyer experience. It's easier. You can set the subscriptions. You can save your cart and add similar things later. You can save tons of time. So I think it's going to be pretty hard to get a lot of people converted back to how they used to buy. And I mean, I think that also brings up just all of the shifts that happened last year. with COVID, it really drove so many different people to think about e-commerce that hadn't been, or to think, yeah, we've been doing it, we've been dabbling, but man, now it's an existential threat. We need to do e-commerce. We need to make this half of our business, or whatever the metric is. And so many companies have tried it and failed, and maybe tried it and failed 3-4 times. We hear that all the time. But at some point they decide, okay, we need to get serious. We need to figure out the right strategy for our product, for our company, for our industry. And we need to figure out what is the best way we can get after that e-commerce customer.
Yeah, but actually in grocery, it's interesting. I mean, grocery and hospitality, like getting burgers delivered, or I mean, McDonald's investing in their own last mile and delivery infrastructure, and looking at let's say the financial data of all these delivery companies, which are like having all red numbers and not really understanding how this can be profitable in the end. So could it be that like big companies like a McDonald's or anybody will also invest in own infrastructure and like this service provider, so that it's really all about techs and ops, and you own the techs and the ops in a better sense, or are much stronger connected, and having food or groceries delivered for somebody on a bike, or if you're not in China where costs are that low, it usually doesn't pay you the pizza you deliver.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think all of these things are so category specific. So I mean, there's freight and warehousing networks for furniture that are quite separate, as an example. Food is another one that's usually quite separate, and food warehousing and shipment has not been optimized or anywhere near optimized yet. Have the refrigeration set up close to everyone's home just has not been done, unless we're relying on these existing infrastructure plays like Walmart that already has a lot of this set up. So in that case, I can see a Walmart trying to own that last mile, since they are close. For a lot of the others, I don't know. Each category is separate, but it seems like it'd be hard for most companies to justify it. I mean, logistics is just so hard. It's so asset intensive. It relies on so much in terms of trucking and staffing and technology. It's just hard. And you've got a duopoly out there with FedEx and UPS. So I think Amazon is bringing a lot of competition to it, of course. But what you're seeing, by the way, from UPS and FedEx, how they're trying to survive with one example, I guess, to your point, one example is a retailer like Amazon is building their own delivery network, right? Of course, they're the best. It's not truly a logistics company, but they're getting there. But as we see the pressure from Amazon, now companies like UPS and FedEx are having to have their own 3PLs. So they're building 3PL operations. They're building technology. They have to do some of these things to compete with Amazon too. So I think I've seen more of the threat in that space for the disruption rather than at the retailer level.
Yeah, it's an interesting part when I take the analogy, for example, to household devices, and I had some experience in household devices, and when I in the past, you had certain special dealers, physical dealers, where you explained your kitchen device, and then people bought there because they know they could return it there and had a good feeling to go there. And now a lot of this business shifted to online. And actually, when I look to Asia, let's say Korea, or with Lotte or Hyundai shopping centers. So it's a great shopping experience. You have food and beverage, you have hospitality applications there, but then things are rented out to brands, big brands, to do kind of an experience shopping, to give you a good show. But in the end, the shopping is basically not done there. The shopping is then again done online, as a kind of a transition to the marketplace, but the physical retail is very much to represent the brand, and So you have a split, which in the past was more narrow, to say the shop is my representation, but it's also my channel. And now you have an experience and you have a channel, which is then, like you said, you're used to getting the things delivered very quickly, no hassle, perfect operations. And that could apply to a lot of brands and a lot of commodities.
Yeah, one of the big topics we speak on quite a bit is disruption and creating a strategy that survives disruption and even uses the disruption out there to help win. And I think as we've seen the death of so many companies or retailers and industries, we think about what is their reason to exist. And you're talking about the experiences in these retailers, and with many retailers that survived well over the last 10 years, they were typically ones that had a really great experience. The ones that were just in a product that could easily be bought, or maybe much more easily be bought on Amazon or the marketplaces, those companies struggled. The companies that had this unique experience and it was fun and they had some customized thing and the customer could only get it by going in the store, those places did well until COVID hit. And then they of course didn't do well. So now we've got new ways people are thinking about it. They want contactless environment. They want some assurance that there's not an issue with germs. And I'm sure a lot of those concerns will fall away over time, but still there will be some remnant of that by customer segment, or maybe everyone will have some remaining thought of that. So at that point, it's not just having a great experience offline, but it's really blending the two and trying to drive from offline to online and from online to offline and have the synergies. So both are needed, both are helpful. The presence of both are a differentiator somehow, whether it's through getting customer data that can be fed into the other or whatever it is, but somehow they become stronger and differentiated against an Amazon than if they only had brick and mortar or only had e-commerce. And so I think in so many cases, it's important to think about how and why are we going to be existing 5 years from now? What can we do that an Amazon cannot do? And if it's really hard to have a 30-second answer that your 10 closest friends and advisors will agree with, if we can't do that, then the next question is, okay, then how are we going to collaborate and win with Amazon in these marketplaces? And how are we going to not fight against them, but how are we going to collaborate so they can win and we can also win?
Yeah, it's a collaborative approach. Because in the end, it's the customer. If the customer cannot get your products, I mean, even when you're a brand, maybe like an Adidas or Nike, who pull their stuff from Amazon because they're big enough and they have great infrastructure, and then people go on their own brand stores. That's one part. Is the delivery and is the experience the same? Do you have a Prime standard? So once you hassle and it doesn't work, then people will not use it. And that's something that as we do a lot of the products in the physical retail, in the end, you can have the best product, but if the process doesn't fulfill the needs of the customer, he will do it once and he say, they invested some crap which doesn't work. Why should I use it? So they will return to a different way and just wonder why they invested in something like that. So I really think, like you said, it has to be category, and you have to give the experience and really understand what is the experience and what is the pitfalls that could befall this customer. And personally, I used, for example, Amazon in Germany to hang up the TV. Once you buy the big flat screens, those are things you yourself, even you try to do very strong. You cannot pull up anymore because it's just too heavy and you cannot put it in. And this is a learning experience, like you said on that part. And I will probably not use it anymore on Amazon because it was really bad until it got done. But in those segments, buying TVs in the future buying certain kitchen appliances, buying stuff, you need to have a service, and it needs to be done in a perfect way.
Yeah. Well, you gave the example of some of the big companies like Nike that have, fought against Amazon with depending on how you define success, maybe with success. And a lot of people think, well, our product doesn't belong on Amazon or doesn't belong on some of these channels. It's a luxury product that we don't want Walmart to sell it. That would hurt the name. We don't want it to be sold online. There's channel conflict. We hear all these things all day, every day, and then the competitors beat these brands. So it's I definitely encourage people to think more holistic and granularly at the same time, to think about what customer segment will be incremental, or can you actually at least retain what customer segment by going through Amazon, by going through whichever marketplace makes sense in your product or geography. And if you can figure that out, what is the strategy for the marketplaces? Because typically there's different customers that shop in these different marketplaces. And so are we sure we want to completely say we do not want any of that business? We want competitors to take over that hugely growing business that's competing with us. And maybe, but typically there are certain products, there are certain methods of selling, certain price points, certain ways of advertising that make a ton of sense. And there are others that make no sense to get on the marketplace. So you just want to be very, very careful. In the case of Nike, again, very, very few companies can say, we're just going to stay off. If Nike truly has that brand power, people may go to Nike. They are definitely losing customers, and they know that. That's in their equation. They're losing a lot of customers by staying off that platform. So it's just something to be very mindful of. And I would just say, first think about, who am I going to lose, and am I okay with it? Not, I think my customers will buy my product elsewhere.
But isn't it funny that in the US and in Europe, a lot of the, let's say you said the luxury companies, they always said, marketplaces and online will stay off. But on the Asia strategy, again, buying a Rolex on JD.com, on concierge service being personally delivered is fine. Yeah, that's that can be done. But and looking at the kids, I mean, you have 4, I have 2. Looking them grow up and how naturally they already understand that you order something and it arrives. I want to listen to a song and I press on the iTunes, and I want to watch a movie, I click on Netflix. So this instant and this digital is something which is totally ingrained. So the next generation coming, who is looking for the next Rolex, basically will already be there. So they are not used to go to a store, and even if it's something very expensive, they don't have the differentiation to say, I buy only cheap stuff online, and the expensive stuff, for them it's, I buy stuff online. I buy
Right. Exactly. And I think you bring up a good point about where each geography is in this adoption of marketplaces and e-commerce. And in a lot of ways, the U.S. and is lagging in the Asian markets, where they are way ahead in things like live streaming and influencer buying, and that, I think that's part of what drives this luxury buying too. But it becomes cool, and it becomes a community, and it becomes better than going in a store, maybe because they can do this online in a certain way. But generally, it's just another example of a product segment that has not been disrupted as much yet in the U.S. and Europe. And you think about the progression, again, starting with books. Everyone said, well, books can't go online. People like to go to the coffee shop, and anyway, will e-commerce even work? Well, of course it did. Then the next was electronics. Well, will that really work? I mean, Best Buy and these other companies are Circuit City, which went under completely because of Amazon, and others are there. How can Amazon compete with that? And then consumer packaged goods. Walmart's doing that. There's no way they can fight Walmart and so on. And so with B2B, well, B2B is, there's a lot of customization, or it's you need sales expertise, or they've got procurement needs. Luxury goods, well, there's this brand image. So I would just say again, these barriers keep dropping. If your category hasn't dropped, just assume it's dropping.
And it's even dropping or merging in a sense. We had in the last show Michael from Rakuten Kobo, and they actually use physical bookstores to sell their e-readers. I mean, they do the e-readers for Fnac, for all the big bookstores. And if you look at book sales, which was interesting for me, because e-reading is still a very small part, and people buy, and I look at myself, I buy a book, I buy an audio book, and I buy the electronic book, because there's some stuff you just want to read twice. So and usually if I have some thriller or some like love story, whatever, I just buy the ebook. I don't have it on a big one. But if I want to have like I said, the traction book, I have it in all kinds of different formats. Yeah. So that's because I need to have the physical one, because I want to mark everything up. So my books look really crappy, and then I put them in my shelves. So that was an interesting experience, that even the fear of the market was there. It was just on top. So the book market still exists, and on top you have the digital ones.
Yeah. I think companies that are surviving and thriving these days are those companies that have been bold. Like the company you mentioned there, they're selling e-readers in physical stores. So that's a bold move. That's cutting off sales or business in it, right? So is that really a good move? You've got to be careful, but it's those types of bold moves that can be very, very helpful when companies say, I'm going to sacrifice part of my business short term for the long-term gain, and reinvent and disrupt myself before someone else disrupts myself. That's typically a better approach.
Yeah. So we already over time. So we wanted to do 30 minutes. We're already at minute 38. So I think that could be a good final statement, because bold and disruption, I think those are differentiators. So and those ops and tech are the ones that could drive that, because the product is basically the same, but the things around it are what differentiates them there. Any closing words, Jamin?
I think just taking that a step further, whether you are looking at startup type business models, or whether you are looking at an existing core business, in either case, be bold. If you're not thinking how to completely flip it and go 10 times or 100 times through this new method of selling, someone is in your category, and they will do it. So be bold and be fast, and you've got a chance.
That's a good one. I'll take that to heart and try harder.
You always do.
No, great.
Right.
Thanks a lot. It was great fun. So hopefully see you soon, live and in person again, when the whole travel is possible.
I look forward to it. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jamin. Bye.